I don't tell this story to a lot of people, not because I don't want to, but because I'm afraid if I think about it too much, it might start again. It started years ago, in a tiny apartment my wife and I rented when we first got married. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up and I wasn't wearing any clothes. Now, before you start laughing, that's not the kind of guy I am. I always go to bed in pajamas. I remember lying there, confused, trying to figure out how my clothes had just disappeared. I thought maybe I was just sleepwalking or my wife was playing some weird prank. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same thing. Woke up at 3 a.m., clothes gone. This time I mentioned it to my wife in the morning. She laughed, made a joke about me being a midnight stripper, and I just smiled. But inside, it didn't feel funny. It felt wrong. Then, about a week later, it escalated. That night I woke up again around 3 a.m. But this time, I wasn't alone. Something was in the room with us. I looked up, and there it was. A small, shadowy figure, floating near the ceiling. It wasn't just standing. It was moving slowly across the room, like it was gliding along the roof. It had no face, but I swear it was looking straight at me. I froze, couldn't move, couldn't breathe, and just like that, it vanished. In the morning, I told my wife what I saw. She didn't take it seriously, just said I'd been dreaming. So I told my mother. She didn't laugh. She told me I needed to go to church, to have a priest bless me. Whatever this is, she said, it's not right. We went that weekend, got prayed over, and for a while, things stopped. A few years later, life was better. We had 2 little girls now and needed more space, so we moved into a bigger apartment. The landlord showed us around, and there was one thing he mentioned. There was a room in the apartment we wouldn't have access to. It belonged to him, and he kept some of his stuff there. It stayed locked at all times. That locked room was directly across the hall from my daughter's bedroom. At first, we thought nothing of it. Life was normal. The girls loved having their own space. But a few months in, I started having dreams again. The first one wasn't too bad. I dreamed something was in the apartment, and I was fighting it off, keeping it away from my wife and kids. But these dreams kept coming back once a week, like clockwork. Then one night, I was putting the girls to bed. I was telling them a made-up bedtime story, and I must have dozed off. In the dream, I was in the hallway. The locked room's door was open, and standing in front of it was a woman. She was wearing a long black dress. Her hair was so long it almost touched the floor. I couldn't see her face. It was hidden by the hair, but her voice was crystal clear. "Leave this place, or I will harm you." I woke up instantly, heart pounding. I told my wife, and this time she didn't laugh. She looked worried. The next day, we called a priest to bless the apartment. And again, for a while, the dream stopped. A few months later, I was coming home from work when one of the neighbors from the floor below stopped me. He looked tired, annoyed. "Can you please tell your kids to stop playing in that room at night?" he said. I stared at him. "What room?" He pointed up. "The one right above my bedroom. There's running, thumping, dragging sounds almost every night." My stomach dropped. The room he was pointing at was the locked room, the one the landlord said nobody had access to. Not long after that, my wife and the girls were in the living room one evening. The girls were drawing while my wife watched TV. Out of nowhere, my wife heard someone call her name from down the hall. She thought it was me. But then our youngest looked up and said, "Mum, someone's calling you." That was it. We'd been there for 3 years, and it was 3 years too long. We packed up and left within a month. I never asked the landlord what was in that room. I don't think I want to know. I've known the Johnson family for years. Good people, successful, wealthy, and always welcoming. They'd recently moved into this huge, modern home, 3 stories, a backyard that could fit 2 swimming pools, and a basement they never really used. The house was spotless. Polished floors, tall ceilings, warm lighting. The kind of place where you feel safe. At least, that's what I thought at first. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to stop by. I'm a psychic. I can sense things other people can't. And as soon as I stepped through that front door, I felt it. A heaviness, a coldness, like the air had weight to it. I didn't say anything at first. We laughed, caught up, and talked about their new home. But while I was smiling and chatting, my mind was somewhere else. Something in this house wasn't right. Finally, I asked Sarah, the mother, "Everything good here?" "Nothing. Strange." She smiled. "Yeah, everything's great. Why?" I hesitated. "Can I take a tour of the house?" "Of course," she said, a little curious. "Why?" "Just want to see it," I told her. We walked through each room. Everything looked normal. Then we reached a door at the end of the hall on the first floor. Sarah opened it. It led to a narrow staircase going down. "The basement," she said casually. "We don't really use it much. Our housekeeper puts extra stuff down there. Old boxes, decorations, furniture we don't need." I asked if I could take a look. "Sure," she said, unlocking the door. The second the door opened, a draft of cold air rolled out. I stepped inside. The light was dim, and the air smelled like damp concrete. I walked slowly down the steps. Every creak of the wood felt louder than it should. I stayed down there for 15 minutes. When I came back up, my shirt was sticking to my skin with sweat. Sarah looked concerned. "What happened? You're sweating." I didn't answer right away. "Let's sit in the lounge. I'll explain." When we sat down, I said, "There's something in your basement." Sarah laughed nervously. "It's a new house. We just bought it. Nothing's happened to us. No strange noises, no. Whatever you're talking about." "That's because you barely use it," I told her. "You're not down there enough for it to bother you, but it's there, and it's watching." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" I asked if anyone in the house had ever felt something off. At first, everyone shook their heads. Then their housekeeper spoke up. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "I feel like someone puts a hand on my shoulder down there. And when I start going down the stairs, I hear the basement door slam shut behind me. I also feel pressure in my chest, like something heavy is in the air." We all looked at him. Sarah laughed. "See, it's just in his head. Nothing's happened to us. We've never felt anything." And then they started making jokes. One of their daughters, Emily, laughed the loudest. "Oh no, a spooky ghost in the basement. Should we give her cookies so she doesn't get mad?" she said sarcastically. I told them not to make fun of it. If you mock it, you're inviting it to react. And trust me, you don't want that. They laughed anyway. I left that evening with a bad feeling in my gut. 2 nights later, I got a call at 2:30 a.m. It was Sarah. Her voice was shaking. "Something's wrong with Emily." When I arrived, Emily was sitting up in bed, crying and trembling. She looked like she'd seen death itself. I asked her what happened. She was here, Emily whispered. Who? I asked. Emily's eyes darted to the dark corner of her room. The woman from the basement. She leaned over me in my sleep and said, "Don't make fun of the things you don't understand, or you will get hurt." The hair on my arm stood up. After that night, no one laughed anymore. The whole family was tense. They kept every light on after dark. No one went near the basement door. Sarah called me again. "Can you come? Please, do something. Make it go away." When I got there, I told them, "You made it angry. You challenged it. Now it wants to be acknowledged." I went down into the basement again. This time, I wasn't just sensing it. I could hear it. A woman's voice humming, deep in the shadows. I began a cleansing ritual. I spoke to it. I told it the family meant no harm. The humming stopped. The air got heavier. Then I heard her voice, clear as day. "They cannot use this place. It is mine. Tell them. No one goes down here again." When I came back upstairs, my face must have said it all. "She says you can stay. She won't harm you. But no one, not you, not your kids, not the housekeeper, can ever go into the basement again." They agreed instantly. From that night on, things went back to normal. Months later, Sarah told me, "Sometimes late at night, we still hear the basement door open and close, and footsteps walking halfway up the stairs. Then they stop." She laughed nervously. "We just pretend we don't hear it." I didn't tell her this, but I know that entity is still there, watching, waiting. And the only thing keeping it from coming upstairs is the promise we made.